listen up, planet Earth. If it wasn't for Canada, the United States' national sport might be soccer. Seriously. Sure, Harvard played a part, but until those lads from McGill came down to share their game with the men in crimson, no one was interested in the ball-in-hand game, because those Ivy League architects of sporting history originally wanted to let their feet do the talking. Imagine a world where hundreds of colleges are producing tens of thousands of football players a year, except those footballers are trying to emulate Pele, Messi and Ronaldo, and not Brady and Mahomes. Imagine Ray Lewis as a dominant centre-back, Troy Polamalu intercepting everything in the heart of midfield, Josh Allen as an unstoppable target man up top, the USA strolling to the World Cup, and actually legitimately being able to call themselves world champions. Well, the fact they aren't is something you can definitely blame Canada for. By changing the direction of college football in the US, they may have saved one code of football whilst helping create another. But today, it's their own code we're talking about. Canadian football, played by winter-hardened men on mud and ice, 12 players, big field, rouges, open field punts and all. Their biggest day, their biggest week even, is the Grey Cup. Forget the Super Bowl, anyone can play in sunny Santa Clara. Try Winnipeg in the late fall. Below freezing, over a century of history behind you and the expectation of a nation upon you. It's time for us to do our final code of football, fresh from the frozen north. This is the Grey Cup, this is Canada, and this is the Sporting Almanac Podcast. What time to be alive?
What time to be alive indeed. The sporting updates, headline news. The Rugby Autumn Internationals roll on through their second round of games. England have beaten Australia and beaten Fiji. New Zealand next, nothing ominous about that. There's been a heap of amazing games across the Autumn Internationals. Just Google the results. All the big boys are in town. The Brazilian Grand Prix won by Lando Norris.
It never disappoints, Ben. It never disappoints.
Yeah. But it leaves the title on a knife edge still.
Oh, it's just...
It makes Lando favourite.
I know it's the last good Grand Prix of the season, so I shouldn't get too excited, but I'm pretty excited. 3 races left. Anything could happen.
Yeah, especially with the politics. Finally, I say finally, it's just because it's a mainstay, a staple in our sporting diet. Premier League, the elite football programme, rolls on like the juggernaut that it is. But we're going left field.
We are going left field. And I think a lot of people are probably wondering why we're going so left field with Canadian football. I mean, hopefully we've got a few Canadians listening, and I'll do my best today. Genuinely, it's not a sport that I remember ever really being on television in the United Kingdom. I'm sure it has been.
No.
You can get it, of course, on streaming now, and I will explain at the end where you can watch this game, should you wish to. But yeah, it's obviously NFL is huge in the United Kingdom. It's huge across the world. American football is big, but Canadian football, I think there's a lot of people who probably don't even realise that it's a completely different game. There's different rules, the different field size, everything's different too. I also believe, Ben, you might be one of those people, having referred to it on a number of occasions last week as Canadian American football.
Yeah, probably did actually, yeah. And that is just indicative of my absolute ignorance when it comes to this sport. And can I put on record, I thought I didn't know anything about archery and volleyball. It turns out that I'm, by comparison, an expert in the fields of archery and volleyball compared to Canadian football. I know nothing about this sport, so I have been learning on the job, and I'm looking forward to you educating me about it a bit more.
Well, yeah, I was going to say the good news about that is that won't be the case in an hour or so's time. We're going rogue today, but we're going rogue for a reason, because if anyone is wondering why we're doing this today, it's basically, in a nutshell, because this is the last code of football, which is common and exists in the modern day, that we haven't covered yet. We've obviously done association football a number of times. We've done both codes of rugby. We've done American football a couple of times.
Yeah.
We've done Australian rules football. We've done Gaelic football. So it seemed rude not to.
Yeah.
With this being the biggest weekend in the Canadian sporting calendar, other than perhaps the Stanley Cup, it seemed rude not to delve into it. So,
yeah, and we're thorough on the Almanac. We cover all bases and we're very inclusive. And if there's a sport to be addressed, it shall be addressed.
Well, it's because there's a gap in the history as it stands now. At the end of this episode, you should, to some degree, obviously there'll still be gaps because no one's that thorough, and also it's so big and vast, the history of football as a sport. But you should be able to, if you picked and chose between the episodes, cover the entire history of the game of football and how it's developed in multiple different codes in different countries, some geographically isolated like Canada and Australia, developing their own form of the game, how Canadian football and American football sort of built off each other, essentially, which I'll come to in a bit. It's interesting. It all links together, and it all has a common ancestor. And if there are any gaps today, we've probably mentioned it in a previous episode.
Yeah, is it the British Victorians by any chance?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously. We've done enough of these episodes now to know that is the root of all sports, or at least all codified sports.
Yeah.
Certainly every code of football, that's where it basically begins. So, shall I begin with the history?
Do, yeah.
I'll do the history, and then I will move on to talking about the cup itself, and then a couple of players I'm going to do profiles on. I'm not going to go too in-depth today. We'll have opportunities in the future to dive back into many of these sports, but there's a couple of people who are definitely worth a mention, one Canadian and one American in particular.
Nice. Well, I will sit back, relax, and be a passenger in this episode and contribute intermittently where I feel comfortable.
Now, I know perfectly well there's some things that you have written down that I don't have written down, so you make sure you do.
I did do some research. Yeah, I did come with something to bring to the table, but it's probably not going to be as informative as the history. But let's go, dive in. Yeah.
So, if you'd like to know sort of the origins of this story, you want to hop back 3 or 4 episodes to our rugby league episode where we talk about the origins of rugby, because Canadian football and American football are adapted from the sport of rugby as it was in the late 19th century. And how it was in the late 19th century was every time a tackle was made, you'd stop, you'd place the ball on the floor, and you'd have a scrum where all the players in the two teams try and shove each other off the ball.
Yeah, a mental set of rules.
Yes, absolutely crazy. Yeah, like it would have been an awful game to watch. But obviously what the Canadians and the Americans did was adapt it so it was a snap rather than a scrum, which is far more entertaining to watch.
Yes.
So, rugby was first played in North America in the mid to late 19th century. Canada itself was formed in 1867 when the British Parliament passed the Constitution Act, which united the colonies of Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick and Nova Scotia into a single federation under the British Crown. It granted Canada a large degree of self-governance, but it didn't get full legislative independence from the United Kingdom until 1982, which is actually very recently indeed.
Yeah, that
6
is.
years before we were born. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's still obviously a member of the Commonwealth, still has shared crown.
Yeah,
like Canadian King Charles is still the King of Canada.
Yeah, Canadian brothers and sisters are close allies.
Indeed. Yeah, did you hear about Prince Harry this week getting into some bother because he wore a LA Dodgers cap?
And he claimed
he should be wearing
claimed he was under duress or something because his wife's from LA and he was he was a guest of the owner of the Dodgers, I think, or something. But yes, what the hell was he thinking?
Yeah, he's come out as a Blue Jays fan now, so best stick with that. Anyway, so British rule in Canada obviously meant there was a large British military presence in the country. And where would most of their officers have had their schooling, Ben?
Sandhurst.
No, in the British public schools, just generally.
Oh, Eton.
Yeah. Or Harrow.
Or Harrow. Yeah.
Rugby.
Rugby school, of course, sorry. Yeah, daft.
Yeah, so in the British public school system, most of these officers had their education. And anyone who's been listening to the podcast will know this means they were likely keen sportsmen in their youth at schools, competing in cricket, soccer, rowing, and rugby. Whichever their particular school specialised in, because different codes of football were played at different schools at this time. Obviously, rugby football developed from rugby school. So they brought these sports to Canada. They taught their men the rules and they organised matches to improve fitness, discipline, morale, camaraderie, all the good stuff. The first accounts of rugby being played in Canada is from 1862, played by British regiments in Montreal. And by 1868, the game was being played by civilians, with a team mostly made up of students from McGill University taking on a team of British soldiers.
I read somewhere, and this is probably just in the sort of, echelons of history, and nobody really knows the accuracy of it, but there was some sort of reference to a practice game in 61, but it wasn't codified, there were no rules, it wasn't organised. It's being played at the University of Toronto, maybe.
Yeah, I've been through like 4 or 5 different sources for this, like Encyclopedia Britannica, that kind of thing. Try to bring it all together to actually get some sort of coherence to this, and no one can bloody agree. So I just think I'll pick a date and stick with it. If anyone wants to argue with me in the comments, they can go ahead and do so. But basically, in the 1860s, it was first being played by British soldiers. Obviously encouraged by their officers who'd presumably been to rugby school, at least one of them, to bring the rules over.
Oh, nice.
But McGill University played a huge part in the formation of Canadian football and also the formation of American football. It's quite interesting. So it was at McGill University in a room in their Mechanics Hall building in 1872 that the Montreal Football Club was founded. They played a couple of games against a team from Quebec City, later that year, both of which ended 0-0. Top quality stuff early on. As was often the case when sport is becoming popular but is geographically isolated, like Australia, obviously, they developed Aussie rules about 15 years before this. The students at McGill looked to tweak the rules to better suit their preferences and ideals of how the game should be played. For those of you who listened to our Rugby League episode, you'll recall, as I mentioned, rugby was very, very different in the 1870s. As I mentioned, the ball was placed on the floor and there was a scrum after every tackle, which obviously is much more familiar now to anyone who watches Rugby League and anyone who watches American or Canadian football, as that is how you restart the game.
It is.
Yeah. Meanwhile, on the other side of the 49th parallel in Boston, Massachusetts,
that sounds like something out of science fiction.
49th parallel. Yeah, it's just the line of latitude. Yeah, latitude that divides America and Canada.
Ah, there you go. Geography.
It sounded boring just saying on the other side of the border. I'm trying to inject some flair into it, Ben.
Hey, well, there was a lot of flair there.
Anyway, to be fair, I'm not even sure if Boston is the other side of the 49th parallel because Maine kind of goes up above the parallel. But I digress.
Boston
Never mind.
Will be where we say they are for the purposes of this flamboyant explanation of the American-Canadian border.
Canadian football, not American football, although I'm about to talk about American football.
Go on then.
So, there was one prestigious university in Boston, Massachusetts who was looking to change the direction that football in the United States was heading in. The first American football game, not American football, American football game, was played in 1869 between the colleges of Rutgers and Princeton. In this game, running with the ball in hand was banned, and instead the ball had to be propelled mostly with the feet into an opponent's goal. Does that sound like a familiar sport to you, Ben?
That's very random. Is that football?
Yeah. The early football games in America, they got their rules from the Football Association.
Football, yeah. The purest of footballs.
Indeed, yeah. So this was obviously 1869 was 6 years after the Football Association in England was founded, which obviously controls football now, soccer, as you would call it, in England. So those two schools, along with representatives from Yale and Columbia, met in 1873 to standardise rules, taking a more soccer-based approach to the game at that point. But this prestigious university in Boston, Harvard University no less, favoured a different sort of game.
Never heard of him.
I mean, who cares? We're talking about Canadian football today. Anyway, they favoured a running game more akin to rugby than soccer, which had been originally played by Boston's Oneida Football Club. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation, so apologies. That was played in the 1860s. That was America's first football team. No one outside of Massachusetts seemed interested in this Boston game, though, so Harvard lacked opponents. And who, given they lacked opponents, did they look to arrange matches against? Those lads from the cold white north? McGill University, no less.
Oh, yeah, the obvious choice.
Obviously, because they're the only other people playing rugby at the time. The two schools met using a hybrid set of laws. Harvard won the first game 3-0, and the second was tied 0-0 in front of about 500 spectators. But they played, because it was a hybrid set of rules, they basically played one game with more of one rules, one game with more of the other rules. And then what Harvard did is they went away, realised that a lot of the Canadian rules that they were playing with were better than the rules they were playing with, including having 11 players per side, having even more running with the ball in hand as a focus, hard tackling, using an oblong ball as well rather than a round one, all improved the game. So they took that back to America. They developed that game a bit more. And by 1875, they'd convinced Yale University, no less, that their new hybrid game was the better version of football. With the changes made, the people at Yale now loved it. Observers from Princeton wanted in as well, and the sport of American football essentially was born from there. And Canada showed them the way. So at the end, like I said, at the end of last week's episode, when you were referring to Canadian football as Canadian American football, what you should actually have been doing was referring to the sport played in the NFL as American Canadian football. Because if it wasn't for Canada, genuinely, if it wasn't for Canada, Americans might have adopted soccer as their national sport. At least they'd probably call it football if they did. But yeah.
Well, thank God that didn't happen either, because 350 million of them, they'd have probably been quite good at it.
They'd been incredible at it. They've missed a trick.
Yeah. So
be USA versus Brazil, like every World Cup final. Can you imagine? Passion versus ruthless organisation and discipline.
Yeah. Thank you, Canada, for saving us from that parallel universe.
Oh God, can you imagine dystopian that is? So yeah, Canadian football in its early days was more similar to rugby than it was to what later became gridiron football, essentially, as North American football is collectively known. That was first developed in the United States in the 1880s, primarily by a man named Walter Camp at Yale University. He introduced the line of scrimmage and the down system to replace scrums, obviously that being the key change, because constant scrums, no one wants to watch that game. His version of it became immensely popular for US colleges, and there began to be a lot of pressure within Canada for Canadian football to become more closely aligned with the American set of rules. And 1903, a new set of rules were proposed and began to be adopted, first by the Ontario Rugby Club in 1903. These rules were known as the Burnside Rules, and they ended up completely transforming the game of Canadian football. So those rules reduced the number of players per side from 15, the same as rugby, to 12, as it is now.
I was going to say before, because I know you're going to carry on explaining them, but I don't know them, so I am looking forward to this. But this is the point where it does actually become quite a different sport, isn't it, I think?
Yes. Yeah, very different. Different from rugby. So a lot of the changes they sort of make semi-independently from America. So you end up adopting a game which is already being played in rugby, which is played on a larger field, which is played with the post in a certain position, whatever it might be, into a game which is sort of a hybrid, but going a lot more towards the gridiron side. So over time, more and more rules, and in fact, in the next couple of years, even more rules are starting to become more and more standardised with American football as well. So whether that be good or bad, I don't know if Canadians have an opinion of that. The game is becoming more and more similar, standardised with American football over time. So, yeah, reduced to 12 players. The ball was now snapped backwards from a line of scrimmage, same as American football. The teams had 3 downs to move the ball forward 10 yards, not 4, which was one difference to American football. They retained a field size more similar to rugby or soccer, which is 110 yards long, 65 yards wide for the field of play, compared to 100 yards by 53.5 yards in American football. It took a while for the rule changes to become standard, but from 1921, this was Canadian football. This was the standardised rules that everyone was playing to. So, how does Canadian football differ from American football? Anyone who wants to know about basics about American football, it was episode, I've lost the episode count in my head, 22 was it? The NFL episode? Our most recent one?
We've done 2, but yeah, the most recent one.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about the rules in the first one. Right, so 12 players per side. So that's one extra in Canadian football and American football. That extra player is usually an additional receiver on offense or an extra defensive back in the defense. I don't know if they say defense or defense in Canada. I'm just going to take advantage of my lack of knowledge and say defense today, so I don't have to say defense all the time. The field is 10 yards longer, so that means instead of the halfway line being on the 50, it's on the 55. So you have a 50-yard line, 5 yards either side of it, which looks really weird when you see it.
I was also just going to say, the size of the pitch, I know you've already mentioned it, but it is massive.
It is. It's a lot wider.
Absolutely massive.
And the end zones are bigger too.
Yeah, they're huge. It's so big, in fact, that when some of the stadiums are with the athletics tracks around them and they have to cut the corners off.
They do, yeah.
To accommodate for the curve.
Yeah, you have sort of an oblong shape to the corners of it.
100 metres, from sort of end zone to end zone, not including the end zone. I know they're not. It's a variable of sizes, but that's huge.
It is weird how they still use yards, actually, because Canadians obviously are all metric. And I don't know why instead of a 110-yard field, they hadn't just been using a 100-metre field, because it's basically the same. But anyway, I digress. Sure, there's a reason for it.
History.
The end... Yeah, why not, indeed. Same as we use yards in football, and then we'll go away and talk about metres, and then talk about miles. We're just a confusing country too in the United Kingdom, so...
We are.
Yes, it's just hybrid. So the end zone's twice as large, so it's 10 yards in American football, it's 20 yards in Canadian, which does sort of serve a purpose, which I'll come to in a bit. The goalposts in Canada are placed on the goal line, similar to rugby, but in America they're obviously placed at the back of the end zone. However, that is one of the rules which will change in 2027. The end zones are going to get reduced by 5 yards to 15 yards long, and the goalposts are going to get moved back to the end of the end zone rather than in the way.
I was disappointed to read that the goalposts are moving because I really like the idea of someone running a route and getting creamed by the post.
Yeah, the goal line routes. Yeah, you get tactical running around the goalposts, and obviously, if you've got your eyes on the attacker the whole time, you can get creamed by the post.
That would be magnificent to see.
It'd be very Canadian. That sort of hard impact.
It would be. That's true. Actually, on brand.
So, the field length's also being reduced to 100 yards, which again is a bit of a shame. It's definitely a feel of standardisation about it, and I do wonder how Canadians feel about that. The ball in Canada used to be slightly larger generally, although there was a range which meant they could have been the same size anyway. That was standardised in 2018, so NFL balls and CFL balls are now the same size. Each team has 4 downs to advance the ball in American football, but only 3 downs in Canadian football. That seems negative when you hear it at first, but actually there's more bias towards the offense in Canada than there is towards the defense. There's extra space on the field, obviously, because the pitch is bigger. There's also more space between the lines and the line of scrimmage, which makes blocking a bit easier because they're on you just slightly less quickly. So a nimble-footed blocker has a bit more of an advantage rather than just being the tanks that you see in American football.
Aren't there they're quite strict rules about when you can and can't tackle as well?
Receiving punts, yeah.
Yeah.
Any kick forwards, you have to allow 5 yards around the player to allow them to catch, otherwise it's a penalty against you.
Yeah, so this is big advantage because it gives you an opportunity to evade a tackle.
It's a more attacking option. In American football, you can wait for a fair catch. They can approach as close as they want to you, so they can hit you the second you catch it, and obviously that will be a fumble. So it's like a mark in rugby union or rugby league. They have marks in rugby league? Ooh. I don't know, but in Aussie rules, they certainly have marks.
I don't think they do have marks in rugby league.
I don't think they do, yeah, because no,
I'm
pretty sure they don't. In fact, they definitely don't, do they? Because otherwise everyone would mark it every time it was booted into the
22 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So ignore rugby league. But yeah, you can't do that in Canadian football, but it allows you that 5 yards space around you, which means you get more returns from kicks than you do in American football, which I guess is good for supporters, probably less good for CTE. But there you go.
Less good for CTE. Yeah, topical.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, 3 downs, not such a bad thing. Oh, there's also another thing that gives the offense an advantage, and that is that in American football, the wide receivers have to be set at the point of the snap. In Canadian football, they can move freely how they want. You can have one receiver moving parallel to the goal of scrimmage, line of scrimmage in American football, so you can move sideways basically, but you can't be moving forward at the time of the snap. In Canadian football, you can. So they get a running start.
They get a run up. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Bit like in the America's Cup of Sailing, where you get a run up to the start line.
That's an incredibly random comparison, Ben. But yes, exactly like the America's Cup in sailing.
It's the first thing that came to my mind about rolling starts.
I mean, Le Mans, you could say. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, never mind.
Well, the reason I've dragged you into this, though, is because it's because how many sports do have rolling starts?
I mean,
I guess kickoffs in rugby do.
They do.
Yeah.
And kickoffs. Well, no, not anymore. I was going to say kickoffs in American football as well, but they don't anymore, do they? Because they have to be static until the moment
until he catches
it's caught.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it does. It means they can get into the backfield quicker.
Yeah.
Be moving at more speed, have a higher speed differential against the reacting defensive backs, and
who also presumably some of whom have to turn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
double whammy.
All of this means offense is stronger than defense in Canadian football, and 3 downs therefore makes sense. The play clock is shorter in Canada as well. It's a bit of a faster paced game. There's also another way to score in Canadian football compared to American football. It's called the single point, which is also known as a rouge, which is when any kick that doesn't score points through the posts, so any field goal that misses or any punt into the end zone, has to be retrieved and run out of the end zone. If the player gets tackled within the end zone, the other team get a point.
And the end zone is massive.
The end zone is massive, which again this is why the end zone being so big serves a purpose, because tactically you can try and punt deep in it and pin them back. Now, there's a stupid...
Yeah, if you kick the ball out the back.
Yeah, there's a stupid aspect to this rule, and this is a good thing. I think they are getting rid of this, and this is one of the good rule changes. Because at the moment, if you just punt it out the end zone, all the way out the back, or if you kick it and miss a field goal, and it goes out the back of the end zone, you get a point.
Oh, that's,
which is stupid.
That is a waste of everyone's time.
I'm surprised it's taken, but it is a really good rule in the sense that you can tactically kick, and you can kick from open play as well in Canadian football. And you do occasionally see kicks from open play, but only really in desperation situations, because same as American football, possession's 9/10 of the law. You want to retain possession. But if you are 1 point down with seconds on the clock, just hit a bomb into the end zone, get them to catch it,
and then just tackle them.
Stop them getting out, and you get a point, and you can level the game that way. Or maybe even if they panic and they fumble it, you might even get a touchdown out of it, which has happened. There's been some crazy ends to games.
I'm still pondering.
Where teams have gambled that way.
Yeah, I mean, that all makes sense. I'm just still pondering the lunacy of allowing someone to just smash the ball off the end of the pitch and get a point.
Yeah, I don't understand it either. I think if it's returnable, so like, I think if it bounces in the end zone and then goes out the back, I can see the point in that. Because at least then it becomes like a tactical kick, like trying to, instead
like a 50-22.
You can't kick it out the full in rugby union, or a 50-22 exactly.
Yeah.
So you have to try and make the ball hit
it means the defenders can't just let it go so that they don't get tackled. That would make sense. And there's a skill to landing it, obviously. But sorry. Anyway, I just shouldn't let this bother me so much, but it has. It's riled me, that.
It's
a stupid rule.
I think if you did that, it would make for obviously, you'd kick a field goal in most circumstances, but it adds to sort of a rugby league-like situation on third down, where you could knock it into the end zone and gamble on them. Either you get a point out of it, or they potentially
cock it up and you score.
But I've just remembered the 5-yard rule, which means you can't put that much pressure on them. It's not like in American football where you can just hit them as soon as they catch it. You have to give them that space.
So it would be
unlikely they'd fumble it, or less likely. But anyway, it's an interesting rule. It's an interesting variant, and it leads to these mad situations you get at the end of games. There's compilations of them on YouTube. I would advise people go look when you see open field punts towards the end of games. It is fun. So yeah, as I said, from next season, missed field goals won't count singles, nor will punts that go out the end zone without being touched. If a punter can make a punt roll into but not out the end zone and the player fails to return it, that will still be a single, as is the rules now. Yeah, so that's a single. So yeah, it's kind of cool.
That's a good little rule. With the exception of the whinge that I was having.
It's especially daft when you have a game-winning field goal situation when the scores are tied, and you know that all the kicker has to do is not hit the post.
That's wild. Like, just miss deliberately.
Which, interestingly, is all you had to do in that game against, who was it, when we were playing rugby, just not hit the post from that kick right in front of the post.
And then I hit the
post. To end the game, and you hit the post.
It did go dead.
It did go dead. We got away with it, but there's a few wide eyes at that point.
Yeah, it was like playing in
we won that 3-0, didn't we?
Yeah, playing in a
mud bath.
A mud bath, yeah. Like there was like no grass on the pitch. It was crazy.
Memories, eh?
Good fun.
Yeah, that was rugby, by the way, not Canadian football.
Union,
indeed. So CFL rosters are also slightly smaller, 46 compared to 53. At least 21 of those players must be deemed nationals, so basically Canadians, and at least 20 of them have to be deemed internationals, basically Americans, with 3 quarterbacks additional to that of indeterminate origin. So your quarterbacks don't count towards your quota. You can have quarterbacks from anywhere.
That's random.
It is random, but there you go. Them's the rules.
Rules are rules, yeah.
So the CFL season is also slightly longer. It's 18 games, although the playoffs are a round shorter, so a team winning the Super Bowl who hasn't had a bye in the first round will have played the same amount of games at the end of the season as their Grey Cup equivalent, essentially. So pretty much the same number of games. There's currently 9 teams in the CFL, split into a west. It's very small, very small. It's always been small.
Read about this, yeah. Go on.
So there's 5 teams in the West Division and 4 teams in the East Division, known as the Big Four. The top 2 teams in each division reach the playoffs, along with the 2 teams with the best record from either division, which means that a team who comes 4th in one division but has a better record than the team who came 3rd in the other will basically steal their spot in the playoffs. So you could theoretically end up with 2 teams from the West or 2 teams from the East playing in the Grey Cup. But I don't think that's ever happened. I tried to check back through the years. Apologies if I missed one, but I didn't see an occasion where that had happened.
Oh, you mean that
it could theoretically happen?
Are you seriously trying to tell anyone that's taken the time to listen to us, mate, that you weren't able to decipher from 111 previous editions whether or not there had been a single conference Grey Cup final?
Yeah.
God,
pretty much.
That's embarrassing.
Apologies, guys. It's actually only since 1958, because before that it was a bit looser.
Yeah, it was. But, had all the hallmarks of what was amateur, wasn't it, until 58?
It was officially amateur, but in practicality it wasn't, and that's sort of the reason why it's the reason. I'll come to it anyway.
You shall.
So I'm going to jump back in time quickly first to 1873, when the Argonaut Rowing Club, like so many cricket clubs in our stories before them, were looking for a way to stop their rowers getting fat after the summer had ended, basically. So they thought rugby.
So they chose an ultra-violent sport to keep them fit.
Yeah, same as cricket teams. I mean, the cricket teams in Australia who set up Aussie rules football as their winter alternative. Like everyone coming back in I was going to say in March, but it wouldn't be March in Australia, would it? It'll be
or not coming
September,
back, or not coming back at all because they've got ACL injuries and stuff.
Anyway. They thought rugby was their answer, and so on October the 4th, 1873, the Toronto Argonauts Football Club was founded. They are still in existence to this day, still playing in the CFL to this day with the same name, which makes them the oldest North American sports team still using their original name, which is a bit of a niche boast, but cool nevertheless.
Also, current holders.
They are the current holders, yeah. And they've won a record 19 Grey Cups out of 25 finals reached, which is the record. Reigning champions defeated the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in Vancouver last November, but they will not retain their title because they came 5th in their division. Or which division they are? No, they'd come 3rd in their division, but they missed out, having only won 5 games this season. So the Western Division team who came 4th pipped them to the playoffs.
I see.
As per the thing I just said.
Yeah.
But yes.
You also very briefly mentioned the Winnipeg Blue Bombers there, who are the unluckiest side. 29 finals, 12 wins, 17 defeats, the most of anyone.
Yeah, it's all right. That's all right. It's not quite Mayo levels of losing.
It's not Mayo levels, but it's. I don't want a 12-17 record. Let's put it that way in finals.
No, not the best. So there is actually There's one team that has a older history than even the Toronto Argonauts, and that is the Hamilton Tiger Cats, who were technically founded in 1950, but they were founded from a merger of the Hamilton Tigers and the Hamilton Wildcats, hence the name. That was largely to stop the Wildcats competing for gate receipts. The Hamilton Tigers were even older than the Argonauts, dating back to being founded as Hamilton Football Club on November the 3rd, 1869. The Hamilton Tigers won 5 Grey Cups. The Hamilton Tiger Cats have added 8 more to that. Most recently in 1999, they've lost 4 finals since then, and that gives them the longest drought in the current CFL.
The only ones not to win this millennium, right?
But unfortunately, they missed out on the Grey Cup this weekend as well, having lost in their semi. So, by comparison, the oldest NFL team is the Arizona Cardinals, founded as Morgan Athletic Club in Chicago in 1898, followed by the Chicago Bears, founded in 1920. So, Canadian football is old, although, of course, these were rugby clubs when they were first founded. So the CFL itself, that founded in 1958, it was a merger between the Interprovincial Rugby Football Union, founded in 1907, even though they hadn't played rugby football since 1921, that was still the name of the league. That became the Eastern Division, and then the Western Interprovincial Football Union, founded in 1936, but with its roots back to 1911, that is now the Western Division, so a bit easier to say than the Western Interprovincial Football Union, so progress there. The two leagues, they merged pretty mutually. Canadian football has steadily been growing less amateur over the years, and since the Second World War, dropped pretty much all pretenses of amateurism. There was another league, the Ontario Rugby Football Union, which also provided teams for the Grey Cup. It used to be the case that what is now the Eastern Division, the winner of that would play a winner of a playoff between the Western Division, or what is now the Western Division, and this Ontario Rugby Football Union. That was a wholly amateur league, still in the ethos of rugby union as it was. From 1954 onwards, though, seeing how writing was on the wall in terms of amateurism, they stopped competing for the Grey Cup. So since then, it's been a competition between the winners of the Western and the winners of the Eastern Division, or whatever they were called beforehand. That's essentially what it is. They merged, as I said, in 1858, and then they sort of semi-merged in 1858 and became the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference.
In 1958?
Did I say 1858? 1958, yeah. Obviously.
100 years later.
Yes. Yeah.
And
keep with me, guys.
Yeah, the Grey Cup wasn't predating the entire sport.
No, that would be impressive. Although it's pretty old. They merged fully in 1980, coming under one banner, the CFL, and being operated as the East Division and the West Division since then.
Yeah.
So, the Grey Cup itself.
Can I say something very quickly?
No.
It would be remiss of us, just because we would be immediately ostracising a set of fans from the CFL, if we didn't say the Edmonton Eskimos Elks are actually the most successful team since 1958.
Yes, since the merger.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
with their 11 championships and 19 finals.
Yeah, don't worry, Edmonton Elks fans. They are now the Elks. They used to be the Eskimos. I'm sure you can guess why that name was changed, similar to a few American teams. They will be mentioned later. So don't you worry, you hang on. You will get some mentions.
Because they're quite good.
Quite good, and also because one of their players once headbutted the cup.
He did.
So, to the Grey Cup. The Grey Cup is awarded these days to the championship winner of Canadian professional football, now just the CFL. It is held on the third Sunday in November and rotates around all the CFL's grounds. This year is the 112th Grey Cup, to be played at the Princess Auto Stadium in Winnipeg, Manitoba, smack bang in the middle of Canada. For those of you who know your USA geography, it's just above the border between North Dakota and Minnesota. So smack bang in the middle of the country.
32,343 all-seater.
Yeah, and the last time it was held in Winnipeg, it was minus 5 degrees, although there was a time it was held, I think in 1991, where it was minus 17. I think the weather's looking at or slightly below freezing right now for next Sunday, so should make for an interesting game. I'm sure Canadians are used to it, but still. They can get cold, yeah. Being in November, being held in Canada, being held in outdoor stadiums, the weather obviously can play a huge factor.
Buffalo stuff.
Yeah. Buffalo stuff turned up to 11. Had a mud bowl in 1950, a fog bowl in 1962, and an ice bowl in 1972, where the whole pitch resembled more of a skating rink than it did
a football
field.
Still went ahead.
It still went ahead. This is Canada, man.
Very indicative of a Canadian mindset. If your leg breaks, that's your problem.
Yeah. Apocalypse, anything less than that, and the game's going ahead.
Yeah. Did you know, since you've mentioned the stadium, I know you're explaining the sort of history and background to the cup, but did you know that this stadium hosted a series of 2015 FIFA Women's World Cup football games?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's cool, though.
7 group games, but, and this is the key thing, no one should really give a shit because Canada and England didn't play there.
Oh, well.
So moving on.
Never mind them. Moving on swiftly. No one listens to this episode cares then. So the Grey Cup's early period spanned the time that the laws of the sport were moving sort of from rugby towards gridiron football. Back in the rugby days, the late 19th and early 20th century, there was a national championship game held to crown the champion of the Canadian Football Union. But a British peer named Albert Grey, the 4th Earl Grey, the great nephew of the Earl Grey tea guy, wanted to...
Great stuff.
That's what the family's famous for, other than this.
Trivia.
Two claims to fame. He wanted to follow in the footsteps of Lord Stanley and his giant cup.
Heard of him.
Yeah, by donating a trophy to the sport. As the Stanley Cup in hockey, see episode 6, was it? Well, our NHL episode, whenever it was. That was being competed for already by this point by professional teams. He wanted to provide a trophy for the amateur ice hockey championships, but a bloke called Sir Montague Allen beat him to it, and the Allen Cup is presented for that purpose to the winner of the Canadian Amateur Ice Hockey Championship to this very day. The Allen Cup is presented. But no matter, Earl Grey decided that the most proudly amateur of sport, rugby, deserved his patronage, so he promised to get a trophy in time for the 1909 championship game. Then he forgot about it, panic ordered it 2 weeks before the match, and it didn't come in time. But never mind. The first Grey Cup was played on December the 4th, 1909 between the University of Toronto Varsity Blues and the Parkdale Canoe Club. Unsurprisingly, the one who wasn't a canoe club won 26-6.
Thanks to doing those canoes a disservice, mate. They might have been quite incredible Canadian football players.
Maybe. I mean, Toronto Argonauts were originally a rowing club, and there is still a rowing club there. Yeah. I know, because there was a fire there, which we will come to later.
Yes, we will. And the cup miraculously survived.
Miraculous, yeah.
Actual miracle.
Yeah, genuinely. Like, the kind of stuff people pray about is incredible. So thanks to Earl Grey's procrastination, the trophy wasn't ready. Toronto didn't get given it until March the following year, but they then won 3 in a row and then failed to reach the 1912 Grey Cup, at which point they refused to give the trophy back, saying that they had to be beaten in a final in order to give it to someone else. So they kept it until 1914 when they did reach the final again, when the Toronto Argonauts beat them, and from that point the trophy has been handed to winner as intended, rather than just hogged by some team in Toronto.
Yeah, did you say that? Didn't someone make a shield or commission a shield to be built, made because the Argonauts wouldn't give them the cup?
Yes,
it was like a little bit of a back and forth.
Yeah, and then there was some spite on it in terms of putting the name on the trophy. Some team wanted to leave their name off because they'd stolen the trophy. Anyway, never mind. Just a bit of early spice.
Yeah.
So the game stopped for the Second World War, and then again in 1919 too, due to a combination of post-war apathy and Spanish flu. So more important things on their mind. And also because the trophy had gone missing, but it was found and returned and was awarded again from 1920 onwards. So initially it was the various unions affiliated to the Canadian Rugby Union that competed for the Cup, and they allowed teams from the new Western Union to compete for it from the 1920s, only for those teams to then be perpetually outclassed for years and years and years, taking until 1935 and the Winnipeg Pegs, now the Blue Bombers, to finally take the Cup West. So that was the first team from the West to win it in 1935. The Grey Cup was initially suspended during World War II, but it came back as a morale booster for military teams only, with normal service resumed in 1945. And as I said, it became steadily more professional from there, putting a wedge between the clubs and leagues with the old union, leading to the eventual breakaway and formation of the CFL. Since then, the Cup has been played between the winners of the West and the East.
As you said,
there, we are caught up.
Yeah, mad. Can I tell you a little bit about the Cup?
You can tell me whatever you want about the Cup.
Commissioned in 1909, as you've already said, but it cost $48.
Spenny.
Not very well. Yeah, I guess maybe back in the day it was a little bit spenny. But
no, it was. I had a look. It was about $1,000. It's not.
Yeah, well,
not for an earl.
Yeah, not for an earl who obviously threw a grand at it because he forgot, as you said. It's a chalice made of sterling silver, and it's actually really small. So the trophy itself now looks massive, but it's Canadians will know this. It's tiny. It's only 33 centimeters. It's 13 inches tall. Basically, they needed a base to put the engravings of the winners on it, a bit like the Stanley Cup. And so its current design was amended in 87. They brought about the big old base, and they do the same thing as the Stanley Cup in that when the engravings fill up, you can change them. I think they've done something to amend the engravings as well with some sort of laser and some fancy stuff because it got filled up very quickly. Yeah,
it meant they could make the writing a little bit smaller so they could fit a few names in it, because for some bizarre reason, they don't just put the winning teams on it. They also put the entire squads and executives and coaches of the winning team on it.
Oh, do they? I didn't know that.
Yeah, which I'm guessing means they have to be carved incredibly small. Even though this base is big, it's 84 centimeters was running out of space.
Yeah. The base is massive. Yeah, the trophy. That's what makes the trophy so big. It filled up in record time. They introduced that base in 87, and I think it was early 2000s. It was already full, and that explains why. So yeah, that's kind of unusual. I liked the fact that the winning team is customarily escorted. The trophy is escorted by 2 members of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police before it's presented by the commissioner.
Very good. And then presumably it's safe in the hands of the winning team from that point onwards.
So
Nothing could possibly go wrong there.
So like the Stanley Cup, this is a good tradition, but it's just funny because, as you say, you're giving us a run up to the fact that people mess about with it and cock it up and damage it and stuff. But the Stanley Cup gets given to the winning team, right? And then they get to keep it and celebrate with it and do what they want with it. And it's exactly the same principle with the Grey Cup, which is obviously a Canadian tradition. So you get people taking it, back home and, on like parades and, doing all sorts with it essentially. And they're not given a replica. And so I guess this is why people go to town and have such a great time with it. It's because, like Vince Lombardi trophy, you get given a replica that you can put in your club museum or whatever. They don't do that in Canadian football, or it seems
got to enjoy it while it lasts.
In Canadian sport, it seems it's just like you can have it for a year, do what you want with it, I guess, within reason. Although I think you get chaperoned everywhere by someone from the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, for good reason.
Yeah, and because it's owned like this. It has trustees like the Stanley Cup. Like it's not owned by the league per se, I don't think. Yeah, and so people just go absolutely wild. Is it an opportune moment to talk about those wild adventures of the Stanley Cup and its survival of fires? And
yeah, it seems a good moment.
Well, you mentioned it earlier, 1947. Toronto Argonaut Rowing Club had the trophy. Big, massive fire. Everything burns to the ground. Everything melts. All the other trophies, all the rowing trophies melt. But the Grey Cup, well, it's still here. So it didn't melt. How did it not melt, Jack? It was on a shelf.
By an absolute miracle, yeah.
On a shelf. You take it from here.
Yeah, shelf was burnt out. Every trophy on the shelf, because there was multiple trophies, as you say, rowing trophies and everything, fell to the floor, were engulfed in the flames that were lower down, except the Grey Cup found itself hanging on a single nail, which was left in the wall, where it was suspended. It was damaged, mainly smoke damaged, but it wasn't melted, it wasn't destroyed, and it survived the fire and was found afterwards, in the midst of all the carnage, still hanging on this nail, on a wall which had just about survived as this whole place had burnt down around them.
Caught on the arm.
Miraculous.
It's an actual miracle. Yeah, not the only time it's been damaged either. The next notable time it was damaged was just, wild celebrations. 1978, Edmonton, Eskimos as they were, having a great time, dropped it, as is the...
Whoops.
Yeah, as is the case.
Whoops-a-daisy.
Yeah. A couple of dents, I think, here and there. It was the Eskimos again. These guys... They were not good custodians. They won it a lot, which you're going to come to. But these guys were not good custodians of it. Someone sat on it in 1987. Nice. And then in 1993...
This one's a bit less excusable than sitting on it.
Blake Dermott, 2-time Grey Cup winner, also an Edmonton player.
Offensive lineman, so big bloke.
Dropped his nut, headbutted the cup.
How have we talked about headbutting inanimate objects in 2 consecutive episodes now? This is meant to be sport we're talking about.
Felipe Massa in the spring.
Just to refer to the Ferrari engineer who headbutted a wall after Felipe Massa didn't win the 2008 World Championship.
Oh,
for anyone who's wondering what we're talking about.
No, you're sorry. I was also I was being way harsher and talking about Felipe Massa driving into a spring.
Oh God.
But you're right. The mechanic was the actual headbutting incident. I was just being unkind.
Poor Felipe.
Yeah,
that was probably quite a bad moment for him. I think.
Yeah,
not as bad as 2008, but next worst thing.
Yeah. I mean, losing a driver's title was definitely worse than nearly dying.
I mean, you could spin it the other way. He survived.
True. Whereas he didn't survive his title challenge. There you go. Blake Dermott, though, the headbutting maniac who damaged the Grey Cup while getting a little excited during celebrations after the 1993 victory.
It's also been stolen twice.
It has been stolen twice.
You see this?
Yes.
Yeah. Both in the late 1960s. Once it was stolen as a prank, but one time it was held for ransom. And they sent a message to the CFL basically saying, we're going to destroy this unless you pay it. And they sent a message back saying, okay, we'll just make a new one.
We are not going to pay you. And then didn't they just leave it in like a locker at a hotel in Toronto? Just like, bollocks.
Left in a hotel, yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't look like this.
They did escape, to be fair. They never got caught.
Yeah. That's something.
Quite whether there was many crimes for them to actually get caught for. At the end of the day.
Do they even know how it was stolen? I mean, I know that it was taken from the Ottawa Rough Riders offices at Lansdowne Park, but Does anybody?
I don't
because
know.
It was unsolved. I presume nobody really knows how it was executed.
I think just like the reasons why Blake Dermott chose to headbutt the trophy, they will remain forever a mystery.
Which will allow people to undertake conspiracy theories and come up with wild explanations born out of nothing other than imagination.
Best thing about being human, Ben.
It is.
So there's a couple of other trophies given as well on Grey Cup Day. There's the MVP award, which is exactly as it sounds, given for the best player on the day, the single best player in the game. And there's also the Dick Suderman Trophy, which is awarded to the best Canadian player on the day. That was originally awarded as the most valuable Canadian player trophy in 1971 to Dick Suderman, who was a defensive end playing for the victorious Calgary Stampeders. Unfortunately, Suderman passed away less than a year later from a brain hemorrhage during a team breakfast the day after a match. He never regained consciousness. It was believed to have not been caused by anything football related, but was instead a congenital issue. So the MVC award was renamed in his honour. It's now the Dick Suderman Trophy, and it's awarded every year to the best Canadian on the field. There's been one occasion where there's been an overlap between the MVP and the Dick Suderman Trophy. Andrew Harris, a running back for the victorious Winnipeg team in 2019. Actually, he was just the first man to win it. I apologise if another Canadian has won both in the last 6 years since I don't have it written down, but he was the first to do it. So he may or may not be the only one. But nevertheless, good achievement.
Very good achievement. It's always sad that these named trophies come after the fact of, something tragic occurring.
Yeah, I mean, he's a young man who was only in his early 30s.
Yeah.
Very sad.
It is sad, but a nice legacy to leave behind.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So, other than that, I've just got 4 million viewers tune in to watch it.
Oh.
It's Canada's largest sporting event by viewers, as in Canada's. Obviously, Canada watches the Stanley Cup very, very heavily, but that's a mixed American-Canadian tournament.
That's a good distinction, because I was racking my brains to be like, how is this above ice hockey? But that makes sense.
I presume it's not. I presume it's in the wording, but nevertheless, it's immensely popular, and it's a week-long festival up to it.
Yeah.
So we'll be in the midst of a week-long festival now. So if you're in Canada already, you might be aware of this.
Oh.
You might even be partying within it. So yeah, that's cool.
I wonder how
take it very seriously.
I wonder how the Blue Jays run affected those ratings, though. In terms of most watched and stuff like that.
Certainly, Game 7. Yeah.
Yeah. I was only going to say that the Canadians did try and conquer America.
Yes, they did.
And I'm all for that. And I think they should try again. Because
I really like it.
It would just be a bruising to the ego of the American if the Canadian football were to establish a foothold in the American market. But
and then they can declare themselves world champions at the end of it.
Yeah. No, I mean, we obviously like the NFL, but they did try in the 90s. They tried to expand. I guess they're sort of based on the ice hockey model somewhat. Only really took off for a couple of years. It was there was financial difficulties and challenges and, all the usual commercial concerns linked to these sort of attempts, and upon which things tend to either succeed or fail. And the Baltimore Stallions were the most successful American side, and they did win the 83rd Grey Cup, which I think was 95. Did we say earlier?
I think 95. Yeah. It's an incredible story in the sense that an American team won the Grey Cup, which is really, really cool. It also came at a time where, if you remember from our previous NFL episodes, Baltimore Colts had moved in the 80s from Baltimore to Indianapolis, leaving Baltimore without a team. So Baltimore was a city who they wanted football, and they somewhat embraced their team, the CFL team. So it was a nice experience for them. However, then the Baltimore Ravens came along in 1996.
Yeah, with Ray Lewis and co.
Yeah, and they were very, very good, very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So that soon put pay to that.
And now they have Lamar. So
yeah, not actually the last time Lamar will get mentioned in this episode. You'll be glad to know.
But yeah, anyway, before we move on from this, Baltimore beat Calgary Stampeders at Taylor Field in Virginia, which I think Virginia is one of the more novel venues for hosting this trophy. I think they have only hosted one or two, and they're going back to Virginia in 2027.
Cool.
Apparently. So yeah, it failed because the Ravens came, and that put pay to that. However, there is a thing. They are still seeking ways of expanding the game, I believe. I say that as like I'm on authority on it. And they have a program.
We're all authorities around here, Ben.
They have a program called Touchdown Atlantic. I say program, I don't mean television show. I mean like a process, which is basically a series of games that are played at neutral sites around the maritime provinces of Canada. It was sort of set
like
up
Newfoundland and
yeah, exactly. So actually, in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick,
Scotia,
Nova Scotia. Sorry, this is there you go. Shows you my ignorance. Never been to Canada, guys, but I am going in January, so I will learn.
Oh, are you?
Yeah,
amazing.
I will learn more. So, Nova Scotia and New Brunswick are the only two provinces to actually host the games. Halifax and Wolfsville in Nova Scotia and Moncton in New Brunswick. But the whole point is the league want to expand to 10 teams if they can. They've obviously been thinking about locations. I think Quebec City and Halifax have been long-standing, shortlisted places where they might be able to take a team. There's a committee that's set up for it, but what it's really turned into is this tradition, I guess, of playing games all around the maritime provinces. I think Newfoundland and Labrador and Prince Edward Island and the Canadian Northern Territories haven't actually hosted a game, but you go where the fans are. It's obviously quite sparsely populated, the more north and rural you get. So
yeah, very much so. Very much so.
So yeah, it's obviously strategic, but I thought that was quite a cool little thing to mention when we were sort of talking about the American invasion, because yeah, they're doing it at home anyway. If they can't expand abroad, they're expanding at home if they can, and if they can't expand, they're bringing it to the doorsteps of new fan bases.
This is good, and it's always been a very small league. Obviously, it's only ever been 8 or 9 teams, and it got mocked a little bit for that by the Americans. It also got particularly mocked by that a little bit by Americans, because not only did they only have 8 or 9 teams in it, but 2 of the teams had the same nickname for many years. They had the Saskatchewan Rough Riders and the Ottawa Rough Riders for many years. It was Rough Riders in Ottawa, and it was Rough Riders, single word, in Saskatchewan. But it's obviously a source of a bit of mockery when you've got only 8 or 9 teams in the league and 2 of them have the same name. Yeah, there you go.
But the Ottawa are now called the Red Blacks, right?
Yeah, so it's like it's not quite a continuation team or not quite a change team, but they've continued in spirit, and they have a lot of sort of references in their uniform and stuff to the old team. But I have a bit of a story about a player who played for the Ottawa Rough Riders. So I think it's worth telling, because as I mentioned, I've got a couple of quarterbacks I'd like to talk about before the end. One, an incredibly influential American, but first, a born and bred Canadian, believed by many to be the greatest Canadian ever to play the sport. His name is Russ Jackson, because he's still alive, and he's still going at age 89.
Good innings.
He was born in Hamilton, Ontario in 1936. He attended McMaster University in his home city, where he excelled both as a basketball player, a football player, and as a mathematician, being the university's nomination for a prestigious Rhodes Scholarship to Oxford University after his senior year of college.
Another one of these blokes that's devilishly handsome as well, I imagine.
Probably, I imagine, yeah. Doesn't matter either way, does it? I mean, this guy's going places, isn't he? So the Rhodes Scholarship basically allows foreign students to study at Oxford University. He got offered the opportunity, but he turned it down in order to go pro. And he was drafted 6th overall in the 1958 CFL draft, which was the first draft to bear the name, because as I mentioned, obviously, that's when the leagues united and became the CFL, Canadian Football League. He was picked by the Ottawa Rough Riders, as I mentioned, and as I mentioned, there was also the Saskatchewan Rough Riders at the time, who are still in existence. Ottawa aren't, they are now, as you say.
Red Blacks.
So he was drafted as a halfback, but he'd played some quarterback, and he eventually settled in as the team starter in the quarterback position, and he began to dominate the league pretty quickly. In 1960, he led the Rough Riders to the Grey Cup, defeating the Edmonton Eskimos 16-6 in Vancouver to bring the big trophy home. He kept dominating through the 1960s. He won the league's MVP 3 times and most outstanding Canadian 4 times, but success eluded them with only one more trip to the Grey Cup in the next 7 seasons, a defeat to the other Rough Riders in Vancouver in 1966. But it was the last 2 years of the decade, which were also the last 2 years of his career, that cemented his legacy. Firstly, in 1968, with Ottawa overturning a 4th quarter deficit against the Calgary Stampeders in Toronto, with a legendary Vic Washington 79-yard run and a 70-yard touchdown pass by our man Jackson in the fourth, bringing it home. The following season, the Rough Riders repeated against their Saskatchewan namesakes in Montreal. They comfortably won 29-11, with Jackson himself winning the game's MVP award, to go with multiple other personal awards that season, including the League MVP, the League MVC, Most Valuable Canadian, the Jeff Russell Memorial Trophy, and the Lou Marsh trophies. Basically all trophies just to say this guy is an absolute boss.
Yeah.
So, the 1969 Grey Cup was the final professional game of his career, and in 1970 he received the Order of Canada.
Oh.
Throughout his playing career, he also split his time teaching. He taught mathematics. He later became the principal and vice principal at several schools, alongside broadcasting duties for the CFL on CBC, and later covering Hamilton Tiger Cats matches on the radio. He took time out of his career to coach for a couple of seasons, but he returned to teaching after that. He's a member of the Canadian Football Hall of Fame, unsurprisingly, and the Russ Jackson Award has been presented annually since 1986 to reward the university football player who most exhibits a combined output in both athletic, academic, and public service in terms of talent. So athletic talent, academic achievement, and public service, which is very fitting all round for someone who obviously displayed all those particular things. And yeah, as I say, 89 years old, 89 years young, still going. Legend Russ Jackson.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's also wild that he was a maths teacher.
Yeah, it's probably quite useful actually to be a quarterback, to be able to think logically and to break things down.
Yeah,
numerically a bit.
I agree, but I'm more meant about like the accessibility of mathematics to the young boy, the teenage boy at school, or the adolescent or young men at any university you might have taught at, or what have you. Like, it's like, oh, who's your maths teacher? Is maths cool? Well, yeah, because it's been taught by the GOAT of Canadian football.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a cool story. Are you going to give the final word to Edmonton Eskimos Elks and their?
Well, I'm going to give my final bio.
And their
you say
dynasty.
final word as if I'm about to finish. There's one more person I need to talk about. I need to talk about him in great depth because he's a very, very important person in the history of both Canadian and American football. So, in terms of someone who's made an impact on the sport and has left a legacy to it, tell me, Ben, what in your head right now does a modern NFL quarterback look like?
Looks like Lamar Jackson.
Yeah. That's a very, very good way to start.
So I love Lamar. It would also be right to say Mahomes. Just anyone that's dynamic. It can do both, basically, running and throwing.
So even more straightforward than that, Ben. Half the NFL right now have an African American starting a quarterback. This is a completely alien concept compared to, even if you look at when we were watching this sport in our youth in like the early 2000s and stuff. There was a small smattering of African American quarterbacks around. Michael Vick, Donovan McNabb, Steve McNair, and you go back even further than that, and there's none. And this was not because, obviously, in the modern age of the NFL, I hardly have to tell you the black quarterbacks are rather good. It wasn't because of any talent issues. It was because of racial stereotyping and prejudice.
Yeah, it's usually the problem.
You think back to the 90s, and you've got your Brett Favres, Peyton Mannings, and the like. That was the stereotypical quarterback. Not that there's anything wrong with those players. They were brilliant players. Maybe not brilliant people in one of the two cases there.
Mr. Favre.
I'm not talking about Peyton. Yeah. But like 5 times in the past decade, you've got African-American MVPs in the NFL, Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, twice each for the last 2. Should have been 6 times because Lamar should have beaten Josh Allen last year, but that's a story for another day.
It is.
So every NFL team has now had a black starting quarterback at some point. It's surprisingly recent for some of them. 2017, the New York Giants became the last NFL team to have a starting quarterback. In fact, some of the oldest franchises in the game, the 49ers, Packers, Colts, Patriots, and Giants, all only had their first starting African-American quarterback since 2010. So the first African-American to start in the NFL in the Super Bowl era was Marlon Briscoe for the Broncos. Astonishingly, there was one man who accounts for 4 different NFL franchises. First African-American quarterback. He's the first to have started for the Tennessee Titans back when they were the Houston Oilers, the Minnesota Vikings, the Seattle Seahawks, and Kansas City Chiefs. He did so in a career that lasted between 1984 and the year 2000. What's even more incredible than that was this man was also a CFL legend before he went to the NFL. He was a member of the Edmonton Eskimos who won 5 Grey Cups in a row, which is unprecedented, never been done before or since. He won numerous personal awards also. The story of how he ended up in the CFL, despite clearly having enough talent to lead any NFL franchise, is indicative of the many problems with race and prejudice in America and the NFL at the time and in years since then. But the story of how he makes it shows that, generally speaking, being so damn good that no one can say no to you is often what is needed to break colour barriers. His name is, of course, Warren Moon. He was probably the first superstar African-American quarterback in the NFL. But as I said, his story didn't start in the NFL. But if you sort of think about this concept of like being so good that you have to break down a colour barrier, like Jackie Robinson, like Lewis Hamilton, players like this who just basically don't give anyone a choice because they are too damn good to be left out. Warren Moon's an example of that. So he was born in LA in 1956. He was a middle child of 7. He was the only boy amongst them. His father was a labourer who died when Moon was just 7 years old. The young boy had to grow up fast, help his family, learning skills like cooking, cleaning and sewing to help his nurse mother out, and his sisters, of course. He only had time to focus on one sport. He chose football. He chose to play quarterback. He had an arm that was better than all his peers. He managed to get himself at a good high school through his talent, Alexander Hamilton High School in Los Angeles. He made it to starting quarterback on the varsity team. He was named to an all-city team as well after a very successful senior year. So you'd imagine colleges would be queuing up to snap up this talented young African-American star with huge potential, right? Nope, not quite. So it wasn't an uncommon thing back then, and it's something which has come up as well with Lamar Jackson when he first joined the NFL and when he was playing at college, is the idea that black quarterbacks get asked to change position, which is a bonkers concept to me. It's the most illogically and clearly racist argument there can be, that they somehow can't handle the complexities of the role due to some sort of perceived, I don't know, low intelligence, lack of analytical thinking, some bullshit like that, which has quite clearly been proved untrue time and time again, certainly in recent years and
definitely
years past.
That's definitely what
there's nothing else it can be.
It's based upon that 100%.
It's completely illogical. Think of like Louis Rees-Zammit as an example, going and playing a completely new sport. We know he's a very talented rugby player. He's come straight back into the Welsh squad. Now he's come back to rugby union. Yet he went to America and he couldn't crack it because he'd not played the position before, because he didn't know the intricacies and he didn't have the instincts like laid into his brain. And all NFL scouts and coaches know this, and yet they look at someone like Lamar Jackson and think, oh, you'd be better off as a running back, or you'd be better off as a wide receiver. Or they looked at Warren Moon and said, you'd be better off as a defensive back. Like, why would he be better off there? He's never played there. He's proven he can play quarterback. The only thing it can be is racism, is this perception that it's a white man's role to play quarterback.
Yeah.
It's astonishing. I mean, hopefully, obviously, Lamar being so good now will put all that to bed, but it was very common in the 70s. It was suggested to Warren Moon, as I said, that he should change position, maybe try playing defensive back. Moon told them where to go. He knew he was only a bit above average as an athlete, basically, but his skills lay with his arm and with his reading of the game, which obviously made him a perfect quarterback. It didn't matter that he wasn't dynamic enough to be a defensive back, because he wasn't a defensive back. He was pretty dynamic, but hardly the same as quarterbacks you get even in these days. Yeah, it's bonkers. It's crazy thing, but that's how it was. So Moon found a local junior college who let him play the quarterback position. He spent a year making himself unignorable. He set records. He broke the passing yards record for that college. Not the last time in his career he'd do that. He got attention particularly from a man named Dick Chesniak, who was a young offensive coordinator at the University of Washington in Seattle, Washington. He was given an offer by them. He accepted, and under head coach Don James, he took on a steep learning curve, with the Washington Huskies going 11-11 in his first 2 seasons. So not great for the team, but him himself was showing really good promise. His senior season, though, was a different matter. Washington went 6-1 in their conference. They won the Pac-8 championship. They got an invitation to the prestigious Rose Bowl, played at Pasadena in early January 1978. There, they met the Michigan Wolverines, who were 14-point favorites for the game. But it was Moon and the Washington Huskies who dominated the first 3 quarters, and they held off a Wolverine fight back to win the game 27-20. Moon got the game's MVP award and came out of it with his reputation huge. So, He graduates, he's eligible for the draft. You'd imagine NFL teams would be queuing up to pick him up, Ben, wouldn't you?
Let me guess.
So no one was prepared to draft him high. He got told he'd be drafted, but only in like lower rounds, like 10th, 11th, 12th round, as it went to then. He said that he might have a chance of being drafted higher up if he changed his position. But he didn't want to change position because he was a quarterback, and why the hell should he change position? Why was that white-bread, corn-fed Nebraska boy not being asked to change position? And he was. Quite legitimate questions, if you ask me. So, again, he went off to somewhere where he could play quarterback. And for that, he looked north. So before the NFL draft, Moon took the bold step of signing with the Edmonton Eskimos of the CFL's Western Conference, later the Western Division. So initially, he shared quarterback duties in a two-quarterback system with a veteran named Tom Wilkinson before he became the starter outright in his third season. His period with the Eskimos was, as I mentioned, astonishingly successful. 5 consecutive Grey Cups from 1978 to 1982, 2 Grey Cup MVPs in that time, and the league's Most Outstanding Player award. All-Star picks, passing yard leader twice, and touchdown leader 3 times in that time. In 1981, he won his and his team's 4th consecutive Grey Cup in one of the greatest finals ever. They were struggling in the first half. Moon himself was struggling big time in the first half. He even got subbed for Wilkinson at one point. The Eskimos found themselves 20 points to 1 down at halftime. He returned with a vengeance in the second half, though, running in 2 touchdowns and leading the drive, which led to a Jim Germany rushing touchdown, and he converted a 2-point conversion as well to level the score at 23, before leading the winning drive, which led to a field goal by Dave Cutler to win the game with just 3 seconds to go and seal a 26-23 victory. In 1982, he became the first pro quarterback to pass for 5,000 yards in the season. He reached exactly 5,000 yards in the season, but to prove it wasn't a fluke, he went even better in 1983. His success doing exactly what he'd done at junior college, it made him unignorable by the NFL. So he left the CFL after the 1983 season as one of the league's all-time greats. He was inducted into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame in 2001. He was ranked as the 5th best CFL player of all time by Canadian Sports Network TSN in 2006. Doug Flutie won that poll. He also played in the NFL until 2005, having had obviously a very stellar career in the CFL. I'm only mentioning Doug Flutie because it would be really remiss of me not to at some point in this episode mention Doug Flutie. So there you go, I've got my Doug Flutie reference in. So at the time, the NFL didn't have conventional free agency rules as it does now, so player salaries were kept relatively low due to the absence of bidding wars. Not so for Moon, though, because he was joining as an undrafted free agent and a superstar. So a bidding war ensued, which was won by Houston Oilers, and they eventually made Moon the best paid player in the league as a result of this. He joined a team who were rebuilding, but still managed to break the franchise record for passing yards in his first season. He got better and more comfortable in his role year on year as the Oilers team improved around him. His pinnacle was 1990, where he led the league in yards, completions, and touchdown passes. He managed to tie a record which was held by Dan Marino for passing the ball 300 yards in a game the most times in the season. He did so 9 times. He also threw for 527 yards against the Chiefs in December, which was only the 6th 500-yard game at the time, and remains the second most passing yards in a game ever to this day, which is quite an incredible stat. He was named the NFL Offensive Player of the Year in 1990, and 1992 was the year that could have been, because with a very, very strong Oilers team reaching the playoffs, they blew a 35-3 third-quarter lead against the Bills to trail 38-35 with seconds to go. Moon led a drive to level the score and force overtime, but then he threw an interception in overtime, which led to the Bills winning field goal to win that game. So it was a season of what could have been. Depending on who you talk to, that game is now called either the comeback or the choke. I'm imagining it's fans in Houston who probably call it the latter. So his final season in Houston was successful, again ended in the playoffs. He never reached the Super Bowl. What negative on an otherwise incredible career. He played for the Vikings, Seahawks, and Chiefs, as I mentioned, becoming their first black quarterback. He showed impressive longevity. He played until he was 44 years old, which was impressive at the time. I mean, only really Tom Brady since, and Drew Brees have pushed him on that.
Yeah.
He won the Pro Bowl MVP in 1997 at the age of 41, which is pretty impressive. His career numbers, when you add it up, if you add up his NFL and CFL numbers combined, it puts him to stratospheric levels. We're talking up there with Brett Favre and Peyton Manning, only below Drew Brees and Tom Brady, of course. Obviously, this isn't how it's done, but he's still 13th on the all-time NFL passing yards list, which is still pretty damn good considering he didn't take his first snap in the league till he was 27 years old. And inevitably, he was elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame as soon as he was eligible in 2006. His number 1 shirt was retired by the Titans organization, who the Houston Oilers became, until this season when he allowed his number 1 shirt to be given to number 1 overall pick Cam Ward, for whom he's acted as something of a mentor. He's also mentored Cam Newton previously as well, so big influence on the game. Like set the way for people to follow him, of course, and yeah, bit of a legend.
I was going to say, as you were talking there, the thing I was thinking when you were talking about the fact they didn't make the Super Bowl, for instance, is that like sometimes when you're a pioneer, it's kind of irrelevant what your sporting achievements are. Like it's the fact that you led the way or blazed the trail.
He was a certain Hall of Famer, regardless, just based on his years playing. He had 20 years basically in the NFL after a 6-year career playing in the CFL,
where he was immensely successful.
Just based on his NFL stats and his NFL career, he's a Hall of Famer. Like as I say, 13th on the all-time list, second most yards in the game ever. Was a passing leader and a offensive player of the year as well.
And as Canadians will no doubt tell us, no one gives a shit what you do in the NFL if you're successful in Canadian football. It's all about Canadian football, baby. And he was
5 rings in a row.
He was the man. Yeah, that's a cool story. Right? That is a good profile.
Good way to end
on. Yeah. You promised to tell us where one might be able to watch the Grey Cup, because it's not probably a very easily accessible watch for us.
It's fairly easily accessible if you're in obviously in Canada, but if you're in the United States, I think it's on CBS. But if you wish to watch it, the Grey Cup is available for international fans to stream on CFL Plus. I think you can buy the Grey Cup as a one-off match. So if you want to watch it, CFL Plus online is your choice.
Nice, very cool.
So yeah, and let's see what becomes of the game, because it'll be a classic. And if you do want to watch it, it is an interesting sport to watch, because if you're an NFL fan, it is just the differences are very, very clear, but kind of cool. Like they're two really good sports. I understand why the NFL is like the NFL, but the CFL is a different game, and its unique sort of properties make it better, which is why I'm a little bit sad about them standardizing it a little bit. I hope they keep the same sort of charm about it. So,
are you going to be picking yourself a CFL team? And if you are, can I correctly guess that it will definitely be the Rough Riders?
We'll see this Sunday. It might depend whether they win or lose. I mean, the Rough Riders is a great nickname. Saskatchewan Rough Riders. Is there a better name in sport than that?
Well, also, they've only got 4 wins from 19 appearances, and you're a sucker for punishment and torture.
I don't know. That's not quite bad enough. That's not St Kilda levels. That's not New York Jets levels.
I guess Hamilton Tiger Cats are giving them a run for their money, given their barren run. So maybe you'll be persuaded to go there.
They blew their semi-final on last Saturday. So
is it fuck Toronto Argonauts? I think it might be.
I don't know. They're old. They're old.
They're old.
They did nearly destroy the trophy in a fire, so that's a bad start.
Yeah, them and Edmonton are like just a little bit too successful for me.
Edmonton are successful, but they've got. I mean, can you say no to a team who's had a player who headbutted the trophy and another player who sat on the trophy and another player who blazed a trail in the NFL?
Someone that's sitting quite sort of like quietly in the mid range with a very neutral record is the Calgary Stampeders with their 8-9 from 17. Last victory in 2018. I think that's kind of like I'm kind of drawn to that. That feels like the right place to place my allegiance. No guarantee, but also a shot.
Stick a pin in it.
Yeah.
We'll come back around in August next season. Well, we'll choose someone.
We'll choose someone. Yeah.
It's in July, August when it starts.
Where are we going?
Because obviously they play a bit earlier, given how brutal the Canadian winter is. It couldn't possibly finish in January, February like the NFL does.
No, it could not. That would be taking it a bit too far. So on that note, to warmer climes we move.
It's very much warmer climes, yeah.
What are we
Too
discussing?
warm, if you ask me. You need a bit of cloud in the air. You need a bit of humidity around. That's what we're missing. Need need a Duke's ball. None of this kookaburra nonsense.
Right, we are getting tribal. We are going to be discussing possibly the most complicated sport in the world. It is definitely the biggest sporting rivalry in sports, bar none. Certainly the longest.
Certainly the oldest, yeah.
It's a matter of national pride, is what it is.
And we're the underdogs.
And we are
always the underdogs when we go to Australia.
The away team is always the underdogs in this format these days. Wasn't always the case, but certainly is now.
And we'll explain why for anyone who doesn't know. So if you haven't picked up on it now, it's the Ashes. The Ashes are starting soon. We're going to do at least 2 episodes now on the Ashes. We might even pick up another one before Christmas.
Yeah.
Of course, we might even do one for every test because we love it so much and we haven't talked about cricket yet.
Yeah, we've been waiting for talk about cricket. We're really looking forward to talking about it. There are heaps of cricket-specific podcasts out there. Those of you who love cricket and watch it routinely will be familiar with them. They don't need us to market them either. Not that we have any aversion from doing so, but they are very successful.
But what we're going to do is we're going to open up with a bit of a how-to cricket in the first episode. Try and be as accessible as possible. So if you are a fan of another sport and you've always wondered what the hell is going on with cricket, tune in. We'll do our best to break it down as simple as possible. And then from the second episode onwards, we'll dive right into the history and the things we love about cricket and just basically lose ourselves in what is our favourite thing in the world, the Ashes series. Well, no, home Ashes series, our favourite thing in the world. Away Ashes series can be utterly depressing.
Yeah.
We'll go into that.
Yeah, but we are very familiar with it. It's, we're suckers for punishment. We keep coming back. England in Australia.
Can't wait.
Okay, mate. See you.
Cool.
See you then.
See you then. See you in Australia. I wish.
I wish too. Yeah, we'll talk about it next week. Speak to you in a little bit.
Yeah, later, mate. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us and for your support over the last 32 and a half episodes. Give yourselves a big pat on the back if you listened to them all, and if not, have a listen to some more. There's no such thing as bad sport after all. If you enjoyed the episode today, please leave a like, a follow, or write a comment. But most importantly, please do tell your friends about us and help spread the word. Our theme tune is Oh Yeah by Harmonia Productions. You can find us on Instagram and Blue Sky at The Sporting Almanac. Next up, it's the one we've been waiting for, the Ashes. It needs no further introduction. But until then, whether you like playing on grass, turf, snow, mud, or solid ice, sport is nothing without the history that makes it. Good night.